History remembers the miracles. History remembers the child who spoke from the cradle. But long before the miracle, there was the pain. Long before the crowd gathered in Jerusalem, there was a lonely woman walking out into a vast, unforgiving desert. Imagine being the purest soul on earth, chosen above all women, yet finding yourself completely alone under the scorching, merciless sun. No mother to hold your hand, no midwife to comfort you, no shelter to hide beneath. Driven to the trunk of a dead, withered palm tree by the excruciating pains of labor, she looked up at the barren sky and cried out a wish that still echoes through the corridors of time. Oh, would that I had died before this, and was a thing forgotten, utterly forgotten. What pushes a woman of absolute, unbreakable faith to wish for her own erasure? What happened in that lonely desert that changed the course of humanity forever? This is not just the story of a miraculous birth. This is the untold story of Maryam, the Virgin Mary. A story of fear, of agonizing vulnerability, and of a divine mercy that caused a dead tree to rain down fresh fruit. Our story begins far away from the harsh desert sands. It begins in the quiet sacred sanctuary of Jerusalem. Here lived Maryam, a woman whose name was synonymous with absolute purity and unyielding devotion. While the world outside was consumed by the pursuit of wealth and power, Maryam lived a secluded life in her mihrab, her private chamber of worship. For years, her only companion was her Creator. She would spend her days in fasting and her nights in deep, tearful prayer. The angels would visit her, bringing her out-of-season fruits from the heavens. She was safe. She was honored. She was the jewel of the children of Israel. But destiny had a different plan. A test so profound it would shake the very foundations of her existence.
One day, while she was entirely secluded from her people, a figure appeared before her. It was not a man. It was the Archangel Gabriel, appearing in the form of a perfectly proportioned human. A sudden wave of terror washed over Maryam. In her absolute modesty, she stepped back and warned him, "I seek refuge in the most merciful from you. If you fear God, do not come near me." But the angel brought no harm. He brought a message that would alter the fabric of the universe. He said, "I am only a messenger from your Lord to give you the news of a pure boy." Maryam was struck with a paralyzing confusion. Her mind raced. "How can I have a boy?" she asked, "when no man has ever touched me, and I have never been unchaste?" The angel's reply was simple, yet it carried the infinite weight of divine power. "Thus it is. Your Lord says, 'It is easy for me,' and we will make him a sign to the people, and a mercy from us, and it is a matter already decreed." The decree was final, but the weight of this divine plan was not just physical, it was deeply, overwhelmingly psychological. Maryam was a virgin, a chaste woman from a noble, righteous lineage. How would she explain this to her society? How would she face the whispers, the horrific accusations, and the scandalous stares of the people who once called her a saint? The fear of societal judgment is a crushing weight. For a woman whose honor is her entire identity, the thought of being branded an outcast was more painful than death itself. To protect her dignity and to hide her growing condition from the prying, unforgiving eyes of the world, Maryam made a heartbreaking decision. She withdrew from her people. She left behind the safety of her sanctuary, the familiarity of Jerusalem, and journeyed toward a remote eastern place. Picture her footsteps in the burning sand, a solitary figure, cloaked in modesty, walking away from everything she had ever known. The vast, empty desert mirrored the profound isolation in her heart. Every step was heavy with the burden of her secret. The world around her was barren, reflecting the terrifying uncertainty of what lay ahead. She was in a self-imposed exile, hiding not from God, but from the cruelty of human judgment. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the inevitable moment approached. The pains of labor began to seize her. Out in the unforgiving wilderness, with the scorching sun beating down upon her, the physical agony became unbearable. Driven by pain, she dragged herself to the base of a withered, dry date palm tree. Let us pause for a moment and look at this scene. There is no hospital. There are no comforting hands, no mother to wipe the sweat from her forehead, no midwife to tell her everything will be all right. She is completely, utterly alone. The physical agony of childbirth is already one of the hardest things a human can endure. But for Maryam, this physical pain was multiplied 1,000 times by her emotional despair. In a moment of absolute vulnerability, as her body shook with pain and her heart trembled with the fear of the future, she broke down. The woman of perfect faith uttered a cry of pure, raw human anguish. "Oh, would that I had died before this, and was a thing forgotten, utterly forgotten." This was not a rejection of God. This was not a loss of faith. It was the breathtakingly honest cry of a human soul pushed to its absolute breaking point. She did not fear death. She feared the shame that awaited her. She feared that her people would slander her, and in doing so, they would commit a grave sin. It was the darkest, most terrifying moment of her life. A moment where hope seemed like a distant, fading mirage in the desert heat. Act 4. The Divine Mercy and the Lesson of Effort. But just when the darkness seemed absolute, when the pain was at its peak, the light of divine mercy broke through the shadows. A voice called out to her from beneath her, a gentle, soothing, miraculous voice, comforting her shattered soul. "Do not grieve. Your Lord has provided beneath you a stream." Maryam opened her eyes, and there, in the middle of the arid, lifeless desert sand, a fresh, crystal-clear spring of water was gushing forth. The Creator of the heavens and the earth was directly comforting his beloved servant. But the miracles did not end there. A command came to her. "And shake the trunk of the date palm tree toward you. It will drop upon you fresh, ripe dates." Look at the profound beauty of this moment. She is leaning against a dead, withered trunk tree. She is a woman exhausted by the excruciating pains of childbirth. How could a weak, exhausted woman shake a massive tree trunk? And how could a dead tree drop fresh fruit? Yet she obeyed. She reached out her trembling hand, and with whatever little strength she had left, she touched the lifeless trunk. God was teaching her, and teaching all of humanity, a breathtakingly profound lesson. The dates could have simply fallen into her lap. The Almighty did not need her physical strength to drop the fruit, but He wanted her to make the effort. No matter how small, no matter how weak,
Make the effort, take the action, and the sustenance, the miracle will come from the divine. We must tie our camel and then put our trust in God. As she shook the trunk, fresh, sweet, ripe dates rained down upon her, a miracle of sustenance in a barren land. Eating the heavenly dates and drinking from the miraculous stream, her physical strength returned. And as she looked down at the newborn baby in her arms, her eyes were cooled. All her pain, all her despair, washed away in the light of her miraculous son, Isa, Jesus. Act 5. The Return and the Ultimate Triumph. Finally, the time came to face the world. The time for hiding was over. Carrying the infant Isa in her arms, Maryam walked out of the desert and back towards Jerusalem. The Almighty had given her one final, strange command. She was to keep a fast of silence. She was not to speak a single word to any human being. Her defense would not come from her own lips. As she entered the city gates, the inevitable happened. The accusations flew at her like poisoned arrows. The people slandered her. They questioned her chastity. They invoked the noble name of her family, trying to crush her spirit. Yet she remained silent. She stood tall, unshaken by the storm of their hatred. When the yelling reached its peak, she simply pointed her finger at the baby in the cradle. The crowd scoffed. They mocked her. "How can we speak to a child in the cradle?" they demanded. It was then that the ultimate miracle occurred. The newborn infant opened his mouth and spoke with the voice of a prophet. He defended his mother's honor. He declared his prophethood. He silenced an entire city with the divine truth. Maryam's silence was her greatest shield, and God's power was her ultimate vindication. On that day, the sands of the desert and the stones of Jerusalem stood witness to a timeless truth. No matter how fierce the storm of falsehood, no matter how lonely the path of righteousness, truth, by the command of the divine, will always, always triumph.